The man in the picture is one of over 3 dozen perpetrators in Tillamook, Oregon alone. I'm not talking about just perpetrators in general. I'm talking about specifically perpetrators against me. Eileen from the First Christian Church. I don't blame her daughters for anything that Eileen did. And I don't treat them badly for anything that Eileen did. When I see Eileen, I don't throw a tantrum. I don't throw things at her. I don't scream at her. I don't yell at her. Why is that? She's not doing those things to me. Don't joke about men stalking you. It's not a funny joke. And it gets innocent men killed. There's a lot of violent-minded, twisted pieces of shit like Chris Stafford in the world. Who does he choose? Women who are on drugs and have boyfriends. He thinks if he gives these women a job, they owe it to him to give him some sort of satisfaction. Let's play the next clip. This one is called Male Domestic Abuse. Any attempt to leave and I'd be killed. Your Story with Rory Smith. Season 1, Episode 4. You only care about domestic abuse. Domestic abuse is not the most common type of abuse. You just pretend that it is. In reality, you're all more likely to come out and take it out on homeless, disabled men, realistically.
I'm Rory Smith, a broadcaster and interviewer. Everyone has a story of challenges and triumphs throughout life, and there's lessons to be learned from everyone's experience. That is why I'm asking each person I meet, what's your story? Ian was a successful businessman. He had his own company. He had his own house. He was an able-bodied man. This was until 2006 when he met his now former girlfriend, Michelle, who domestically abused him. These attacks included everything from burning to hitting him to even sexual assault. This went on for a total of 14 months. He says that by the end of those 14 months, he was a changed man and barely recognised himself. Although he still has the scars from that time, he's now speaking out in order to help other people. Here is Ian's story. Tell me about your relationship with Michelle in the first few months that you were with her. What was it like?
So when I first met Michelle, it was just a normal, very relaxed relationship with different ideas of normal, but there were no signs there at all as to what was going to evolve. She was a small lady, just 5'4", 7.5 stone, slim built, relaxed, sense of humour, which was a bit quirky. Mm-hmm. Nothing whatsoever. Mm-hmm. We fast forward 4 or 5 months into the relationship, and it's just a switch.
Was there a grooming process during that time as well?
That's a really interesting phrase. So when I think back to that initial period, I do use this phrase grooming. And what I mean by that is that she built me up to feel like a king. I'm not somebody who smokes. I'm not a regular drinker. And she spoke about, you don't go out and get drunk. You don't smoke. You don't do drugs. She spoke about how, in some ways, she felt quite lucky, but not in a humbling way, but just, I like to think I'm a decent guy. I've got faults like anybody, quirks, but she made me feel better about myself, and she made me feel really good about me and her. That was what she did.
Mm-hmm. And how far into the relationship was the first attack?
So I met Michelle on the 1st of October, and it was in the middle of February, so just some over 4.5 months. And she'd told me that there'd been this argument at home. She lived in the Midlands, I was in Lincolnshire. Would I mind if she stayed on at my property for a little bit longer? And of course, that wasn't a problem by then. I thought she will tell me about this problem when it's right for her. I didn't push her on it. And she was hoovering up in my front room, and I was just relaxed reading the paper. And she just very innocently asked me, what was the last sexual act you performed with your last girlfriend? And I laughed, and I sort of made a bit of a joke of it. And in a flash, she just unscrewed this Hoover pipe, and whack, like my head was a rounder's ball. And I've still got the scar here. And she just started ranting and raving. I've got an effing right to know. And she wanted to know, was she taller than me? What was her hair colour? Was she slimmer than her? Was she bigger than her? And of course, in that moment, the absolute shock, then fear of, my God, what is going to happen next? And I just blurted anything out. Just give her about anything. And then eventually, she just stopped as if somebody had hit a pause button. She walked into the kitchen, she took the blood off the Hoover pipe, put it back together and carried on. And it was as if those few moments had just never happened.
What was going through your head?
Well, first, the absolute shock, oh my God. What in that first moment, when this Hoover pipe connects here, this stinging sensation was unbelievable. And I obviously realised that my had split. Never looked at her. Don't say anything. God, this will just stop. It'll blow over. Please, it'll blow over.
It doesn't.
Answer a question. Spit it out really quickly. And then, when she went into the kitchen, I didn't sit. I didn't move. And it goes back to your previous question, which is part of this grooming process. I realised in that moment that she'd cut me off from friends and family. So just to put that into context, I was somebody who was travelling around the country with running my own business. It wasn't unusual, and of course you knew this by now, that I would go 3, 4, sometimes 6 weeks before I would see friends. My family, which consisted of just my dad and my brother, mum had passed years before, lived 40 miles away. The neighbourhood was quite a small street with only maybe 9 or 10 houses in it. And when my friends were calling, she would always, when I looked back, make an excuse to get me off the phone. So she would, I now know, she'd pretend that she'd put her hands under she'd run the water and it was boiling hot. And she'd shout, Ian, I've burnt myself. And unbeknown to me, the final strand, she was sending messages to friends saying that I needed money back that I'd lent to them. And of course I hadn't. So that combination, this grooming process, it's about manipulation. And I've tried to explain an example. She was manipulating friendships. Once she'd started to manipulate, I was isolated. And once I was isolated, she had control.
Did any of your friends or family suspect anything was going on?
Well, obviously my family were remote, so they were some 40 miles away. I didn't see them that much because of the nature of my lifestyle. It was nothing more than that. So, and also we didn't speak that often. But in effect, she'd cut me off completely. So going back to that moment of that first assault, because she'd started to manipulate calls and in effect telling untruths. Those calls became far less infrequent till they eventually stopped. So again, at the point of the assault, I was not having telephone conversations with the people who were in my life, my small circle of friends. And when you stop speaking to people, two things is you think, well, I haven't spoke to somebody for a while. I don't feel as though I can contact them. And having not been in that situation, if I made contact, how would I bring that subject up?
And after that first attack, did you confront her in any way or ask her why or what that was about earlier?
So obviously after the assault, we get into the thing of why didn't you leave? I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know where to go or what to do. After the assault, I didn't say anything. She carried on as normal. And I then realised, my God, I'm on my own. Mm-hmm. I'd become a prisoner in my own home in a split second. Mm-hmm. What did that start the contrast?
What did you fear would be the consequences if you were to speak out?
Prison.
So here's the next stage. So after the assault, she goes back to normal. I'm not saying anything. I literally just don't speak to her in case I'm going to make her angry. And then, quite quickly, she showed me some crimes that had gone on in the Midlands where she was from, and tells me that she's got brothers in organised crime. And these crimes that she's showing me, they've definitely taken place. She's telling me her brothers have been involved in this. They're running the doors and the pubs. These are seriously violent guys. And of course, there's part of the manipulation and the control. There's no pictures of her brothers. And even if there were pictures of her brothers, I'd not met them at this point. So I didn't know whether that was them or they could have been anybody. Mm-hmm. And I'm given a clear choice. If you make any attempt to leave, I'll tell my brothers that you've done something and they'll kill you. So it's a really easy decision. Mm-hmm. Leave and be killed or stay. So I stayed. It was that simple.
Did she show any remorse for what she did for that first attack?
Absolutely nothing. And this would become a real pattern of Michelle's behaviour where she wiped the Hoover pipe and just carried on.
Natalie Bollinger felt no remorse. Showed no remorse. Alicia Bollinger. No remorse. Maddie Boa. No remorse. Shannon Alvarado. No remorse. None. Kayla Trujillo. No remorse. Leatha Plunkett. No remorse. Dawn Bird. No remorse. None. Kara Johnson Miles. No remorse whatsoever. Rose M. Kelly. No remorse. None. How about the two ex-stepmothers? Rochelle Shelley Campbell and Danica Lachelle Garner. No remorse. And nobody gives a shit to this day. Are there women who have helped me? No. There are women who pretended to help me as long as they were able to rip me off. And after they'd ripped me off, all of a sudden they're victims, aren't they? Aren't they all?
And it was as if the bit in between from hoovering to the assault to go...
Now, one thing you might notice about all of these women is that not one of them has accused me of sexually assaulting them, physically assaulting them, or anything fucking near it. But it doesn't matter. You had your scapegoat. You're all fucking cowards.
Going back, that had just been erased. It was like a joined up movie with that clip taken out of it.
And that night, whenever you went to bed, what was going through your head? Did you have fear that this could continue?
So each night when I go to bed, I've broken my day down in 3 pieces. Get through the morning without any violence, get through the afternoon without any violence, and go to bed when I'm told. So by now, thinking about going to bed, there's lots of stuff going on. So what I'd ask anybody watching this to imagine, just imagine that tomorrow, your day will start when you are told. So you'll be woken up. It might be 5 o'clock. It could be 10 o'clock in the morning, depending on what time you've gone to bed the night before, if at all. And again, when you're allowed to go to sleep. You wake up, you ask permission to make a drink. You ask permission to go to the toilet. You eat what you're given when you're given. You are, in effect, an object. Again, the analogy, you're the television. Michelle's got the remote control.
Obviously, these are Brits. Even the Brits will admit that American women are worse.
Played with all the settings, brightness, volume. So I'm just nothing. I've become nothing overnight. So going to bed at the night time was absolutely, I've got through the day without any violence, but a real strong part of her behaviour. I'll just talk, it's a really strong trait. So I now know, looking back, that she would put off the bedside lamp. I had the same lamp on my side of the bed. And she would be listening to me breathing. When my breathing started to go heavier, so I'm tired because my sleep pattern's all over the place, she'd put the light on in a flash, and she'd be stood on the bed, and she would either sink her teeth in the top of my head, she would have a mobile phone in her hand that she would ram into my cheekbones, had been fractured multiple times, or she'd punch or kick or stamp on my privates or on my stomach or on my face, and she'd just say, here's another night where you haven't instigated sex and you haven't told me today that you loved me. You've now got 5 minutes to be ready. Now, at that point, I feel my eyes closing where she slammed a mobile into it, or I've got blood coming out my nose or my mouth, or I'm in excruciating pain because she's stomped on my privates. And she sat there with a watch, and she's made me stand at the end of the bed, and I'm having to masturbate to get ready to have sex. And she's looking at a watch and looking at me like this. Come on, she said. Only 4 minutes and 20 seconds. There's not a lot happening. This pressure of this time scale of the countdown. And she's going through it at 30, 60 second intervals at her leisure, at her will. And of course, at the end of the 5 minutes, when firstly, I don't want to have sex with her. I don't love her. I don't want to have sex with her. At the end of the 5 minutes, and this is another example, she completely forgets the assault. And so when I'm not physically able to have sex, there's the proof that you don't find me attractive, you've never loved me, you've lied to me, and there'll be a second much more violent assault. There'll be a second much more violent assault. So not the fact that I can't have sex with you, I don't want to have sex with you, because my eyes closing, I'm in pain where your teeth are being sunk in my head, or I've got blood going down the back of my throat. That's not a factor in her mind. And that's been erased. So there'd be a more severe assault. And I remember one time, she just picked a portable TV up in the bedroom and just slammed it on my head. I've got one of the photos with blood all over the television.
Because we're going to take you through a couple of photos now as well. Is this the one with the bedroom that we're talking about, with the blood-stained bedroom?
Yeah, so there's a lot of blood in the bedroom, and what you'll see There's blood on the pillow. There's a shot where there's a claw mark down the wall, where after a beating, I'd literally just slid down the wall to the floor. I'd had blood coming out my nose and my mouth, which has gone onto my hands. And you see my blood-stained paw print just sliding down the wall. And the blood on the bed is from multiple assaults. It's not just one.
And, you know, it would be very easy for me to ask what was going through your head at that time or how are you feeling? But were you almost so exhausted by this stage that the feeling was lost, that you had no feeling?
Yeah, you basically are in survival mode, and it's do as you're told, speak when you're told. You become your hermit-like, because the only time you go out is to buy some cigarettes for Michelle after the assault. It's the only time I'm going out of property. You're not hearing any other voice, and inevitably when you hear that voice, you're being told what to do, or you're being told, well, I don't know why you're wearing that shirt. You put weight on. God, that shirt makes you look fat. That colour makes you look pasty. Oh, you've lost a lot of weight. That you look really, God, you're almost emaciated. So whatever you wore, so there's this one voice going around, and you know it's verbal abuse. It's emotional, psychological, and you're only functioning based on what you've told. So you haven't got time to think, to make a plan, other than if I leave, I'm going to be killed. So I'm staying, and all I'm trying to do is get from wake up time to at the end of the morning, from midday to 5, 6 o'clock, and then from 6 o'clock, that's all I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to survive. Nothing more than that.
Here's another photo that we're about to see. This is a picture of a stairwell, and there's a hammer towards the middle of it, and it's sort of, it seems like half a hammer. How did this happen?
So when you look at that, and there's one of the messages to the police, I guess, when they're going into a crime scene, it's about being professionally curious. But for me, what that is, it became Exhibit A. So what turned out to be the last assault, which lasted just over 6 hours, actually, and only ended because Michelle was fatigued. I was sat in the chair. She had got quite verbally abusive. She had previously branded me with a red-hot iron, which we may come on to. But this assault with the hammer, she got me to stand up. The first strike was put into my head. I now know she fractured my skull. The second strike was driven into my side, and she fractured some ribs. And the third strike was delivered with such ferocity. And I asked you to remember, this is a female who was 5'1" and 7.5 stone. She delivered it with such force into this shoulder, the hammer broke, and you see in the image. And if I put my arm in a certain way, I've got a permanent indentation from that hammerhead in my shoulder.
Did you go to hospital after any of these?
No, so I was always denied medical help. The only time that Michelle sought medical help on my behalf before I was rescued by the police was when she poured a kettle of water over my groin, not once but twice. And she rang a local pharmacist and said there'd been an accident in the home with a pan of water. Was it possible to deliver some gauzes and burn cream, and it'd be paid for upon delivery? So again, of course, she controlled that situation. She went to the door, took delivery, paid for it, and then just slung these gauzes and cream at me in a bag and said, sort yourself out. The next time I got medical attention was when I was rescued.
This is another photo, and I think you briefly mentioned it just then about the iron. Is this burns on your arm?
Yeah. So what we've got here, and this assault just took 30 seconds. And again, just to give people an insight into this psychological control. So it took Michelle just 30 seconds. She branded me with a red hot iron on my lower forearm, between my shoulder blades, and on my upper right arm, I've got a triangle of the iron where it took the pigmentation off my skin. So she was ironing away in the living room. She started to get aggressive again, saying, you don't listen, you don't tell me you love me. And she asked me to stand up, and she punched me in the face. And then she said to me, and people will understand why I did it, but sorry, won't understand why I did it. She said to me, take your effing t-shirt off or else I'll steam your face. Now, when I look back on this and I slow it down, you think, if anybody said that to you, why would you do that? You would make some attempt to get out. And we go back to, I'm not safe to leave the property. I'm going to be killed. So whatever's going on in there is not worse than death. And she tells me to take my t-shirt off or she's going to steam my face.
Death is preference.
So I'll take my t-shirt off in a flash. And the reason why I do that is I have absolutely no doubt if I don't take my t-shirt off, she'll steam my face. And I'm thinking, this is the only one I've got. Do you know what, Michelle? If you want to chop a finger off, it's not a problem. I've still got 9. If you chop an arm off, I'll still have 1. But I've only got 1 face. So I took my t-shirt off in a flash and it was just like that. It was that quick. And then she walked into the kitchen. She run the iron. I heard the tap go. She run it under a tap, presumably because there was some skin on there. And just carried on ironing. Again, it was as if it hadn't happened. And I was in unbelievable pain. And I know why she did what she did. You then go to sleep. I can't lay on my back because I've been branded with an iron. I can't lay on this side because I've got a branding mark there. And I can't lay on this side because I've got a branding mark there. And I couldn't lay on my front because my nose had been fractured and broken that many times. If I laid on my front with my mouth closed, sleeping, I'm not getting any oxygen. I'd wake up with a pounding headache. So I slept somehow in the least.
When Lanning Line was supposedly going to help. In every group of women, there's one in control. And it's usually a man-hater like Lana Ingline. Lana Ingline is also addicted to sex. Well, not anymore. She's fucking dead. I was trying to tell her what was going on. And she grabbed my hand and put it on her boob. And I didn't like it. She was mean to me the whole rest of the time. You can't tell a woman no. I didn't care about the abuse. She just wanted some dick. And when she didn't get it, she retaliated against me the entire rest of the time that I was there. And although Amanda Ingline was very nice, she wants to claim that she helped me. The fact is that she didn't. The abuse by her and her mother and Jerry Sparks made it so all of my efforts when I was in Montana were all wasted. When Jerry came over, because she was supposedly going to help, did she help me? No, she sat at the table with Lana. And I couldn't tell her about the abuse that I had to endure from Lana Ingline. Not that she'd fucking listen anyway. But Jerry Sparks, just like literally every single other woman I know, didn't care. She was fucking heartless about it. And it doesn't matter how many oohs and ohs and I'm sorries that you throw at me. Your behaviors show that you're not fucking sorry. When women abuse us until we want our lives to end, what do? You punish us for wanting our lives to end. You call us mentally ill because the abuse is that fucking horrible. We want to live, but this is not life. This is hell on earth. And all of you take part in it. Men, women, and even children. That's right. You even pull your children into that bullshit. Telling your children all the horrible things that you used to say about black people. You used to say about brown people. You used to say about Jewish people. You used to say about Muslims. But you're not allowed to go after them anymore. They're protected. Men are not. Yes, we need women to protect us from bad women. And they're not going to. Who abused who abused Amy Kalina Kingery's daughters? That would be Amy Kalina Kingery, Joshua Rayborn, and Rayanna Ingersoll. Who protected those girls? I did, to the best of my male ability, but I have no voice. Maddie Boa pretended that I raped and molested 2 little girls in Virginia. Maddie Boa, MADIBOA. When we're abused, you tell us it's our fault for being there. No matter what, it's always a man's fault. Meanwhile, you got fucking idiots like Andrew Wolnez. How dare anybody tell on you? How dare anybody record you committing crimes against them? Right? It wasn't Tim Beeson that pushed me to commit suicide. It was my so-called friends. It was people like Kenneth Wilson, Leatha Plunkett, people like Kayla Trujillo and Joshua Hebert, people like Joanna Taylor Smith and Derek Parrish. Friends like Brandon Ratner or Veronica Seward, aka Missy Bruce. It didn't matter that I went to my friends for help stopping the abuse because none of them would listen. To this day, they won't listen. They started off telling me how to think and how to feel. Oh, you just need to think of it differently. You know, how you perceive it may not be the way they perceive it. Yeah, fuck you, dude. You're not a friend. I've got evidence. What have you got? Excuses. You harm us until there is nothing left to live for. I hear this guy talking about his abuse, and I'm thinking to myself the whole time, God damn, he's lucky he didn't grow up in the system. Then there's Dr. Phil, the idiot, claiming it's never okay to hit a woman. That's bullshit. Socially, bias says that it's never okay for a man to hit a woman, but legally it's still illegal for her. When it's a disabled homeless man, that's where all Americans show how truly trashy they are. When we're abused, we're taken advantage of. These services that you are able to take advantage of. By the way, it's at the expense of actual victims, but you don't feel bad about that in the least bit. You tried man trapping and it didn't work. Now you're stuck mooching off the system. I didn't find out until much later after Natalie's death how many of my friends got the drugs that they were passing out from Ted Bollinger. People like Todd Ryan Case. Just so you know, that buzzing was a restricted number calling me to harass me. See, one of the things that they talk about in these are how these women socially isolated them by lying to them and about them, lying to their friends, lying to their family. Manipulation and control. You take advantage of a man, you just call him mentally ill. Oh, I was afraid of him, he's mentally ill. Oh, poor me, I'm just a girl. Natalie and Alicia Bollinger both deserve prison time for what they did. And what Alicia Bollinger continues to do. See, when this first started, people wanted to pretend that I stalked Natalie. But it wasn't just the pretending I stalked her, because that's the rumor they heard. No, it was also the insinuations while they're pushing me and shoving me that I must not have been able to take no for an answer, that I must be a sexual predator. And that was day one. The insinuation that I must be. From people who are not there. Alicia Bollinger could pull her head out of her ass and admit that I didn't rape or molest anyone in Virginia. But it doesn't matter. You don't give a shit how much abuse I have had to go through. Because you're all pieces of shit. Every goddamn one of you. Natalie Bollinger and Alicia Bollinger never accused me of raping or molesting anyone. That was all Maddie Boa. And the people that Natalie and Alicia pretended that I stalked them to. None of you are good fucking people. Not a goddamn one. I've been battered, beaten, bruised, bloodied. I want someone to take my evidence and then put a hole in my head. Is that too much to ask for? Don't pretend to give a fuck about my life. Because none of you do. You will literally allow anyone to do anything that they want to me. And you will help them to get away with it. Andrew Wolnez assaulted me at least 7 times. Depending on what you consider an assault. But as far as what's legally an assault, yeah. 7 different occasions. 7 different occasions. I'm trying to do the right thing, but none of you are good fucking people. You help disgusting pieces of shit like Andrew Wolnez get away with harming innocent people. You helped Molly get away with this. You helped Robert Farnsworth get away with this. You helped Robert Franklin Warnick get away with this. By not giving a shit. Obviously, I'm not talking to you, new viewers. I'm just pretending to myself like one of these people who claim they love me might actually give a shit enough to take a look and fucking listen. You know, one of the youth down here that wanted to be antagonistic with the N-word. He was 14. How do I know that? Well, I don't. But he told me he was 14. How many kids were in that parking lot that night? I don't know. Most of them were adults. How about the night they were trying to talk me into harming some Hispanic kids for escorting their sisters to Burger King to get something to fucking eat? So that 14-year-old, he works at Safeway now. He sees me, but he doesn't say a word. He doesn't bug me. He doesn't mess with me. He just minds his business. Which is what he should have done to begin with. However, he also parked next to me. You show me I have no hope. If you actually cared about me, you'd help to turn it in immediately. And you wouldn't let them talk over me or sell a false narrative. You'd speak up. Instead of telling me I have to do it all myself when I'm just going to be dismissed outright. Called mentally ill. I'm homeless. This is standard fucking procedure. You don't have to be guilty to go to jail in the United States. You just have to be broke. Because nobody in this country gives a holy goddamn about anything else. When it all comes down to it, most of us are stuck in survival mode. Because too much is expected of us. Now don't try pretending that because the tutors, that would be T-U-D-O-R, not T-U-T-O-R. This is a family. They literally worked people to death the same way that the Nazis did. So did Queen Elizabeth I. As did Mary, Queen of Scots. And how many of you have ever heard of Elizabeth Bathory? Predators like Andrew Wolnez aren't the problem. The women who initiated the violence, because they didn't get what they wanted right when they wanted it. Those are the real problem. The real problem is the number of cheap-ass women in mental health, therapists, nurses, health and human services. Nearly all services to help abused individuals are run by women, and they're only to help women. And many of these women get snide and disrespectful because a man walks through the door. They will do as little to help you as possible. Just enough to say that they did. Because here's the thing. Tides of Change will lose all funding, and they'll be closed down if they don't at least pretend to help a man who comes in for help. In reality, that bitch don't want to be there. She sees all men as the enemy. Except for cops. They're just fucking tools. Women, for the most part, will try to enlist other women in the hopes that those women will enlist the men in their lives. Shauna Sinclair, she was one of my friends I was in contact with just before Natalie was killed. She just had her cousins beat up people that told her no. She didn't like the fact that I posted that evidence up. She also didn't like the fact that I posted up evidence that I did go to her for help. That I was in the process of telling her I didn't want to be friends no more. There's a lot of people right before Christmas in 2016 that I told I was not okay with being their friends because they are perpetrators of a rape culture that I refuse to be a part of. What's the ending result? Every single one of you who claimed to care, claimed that you spoke up. Never once did you speak up in court, ever. No, it was about arguing on Facebook for everyone. Arguing in Facebook groups. And when I tried to show the truth, everywhere that I went, I had to deal with Natalie's shitty goddamn family and their friends making my life a living hell. After she was killed, it got even worse. Because then I have to be leery of everyone because you're all shitty people. All humans are shitty. All of them. That's why I prefer the company of dogs. There's no such thing as an evil dog. They're either loving or you broke them. Why would you do that? The next video will be about Elizabeth Bathory. Because we get to hear how the world would be a better place if it was run by women. We already know that's not the case. We already know that women are more likely to be sexual predators than men. By a lot. That's why every one of these man-hater groups wants to base everything off of arrest and conviction. Well, it's a biased system. The cops just assume that the woman's the victim and that the man is the perpetrator. And they're not going to collect any evidence other than that. If you're broke, you get a public pretender who isn't even going to fucking pretend to defend you. I was forced to go public by the complacency of those who claim to love me. And after Natalie's death, I was literally forced to break the law to protect myself from those very same friends. Because all they were ever going to do is all that they had ever done. Bullshit me, lie to me, tell me they need cigarettes. Oh yeah, Sean, I'll help you. Don't forget to bring cigarettes. But you know what? Some of the times I was over there, I didn't have any cigarettes. I can't defend myself against women, men, or bad laws. And we have good laws that are outright ignored. Oh, we got someone on here calling themselves Rawa typed loser. Now, either you're trying to be insulting to me, or you're calling the people in my story losers. I don't know which. But if you're a troll, I'd rather you just left. It's not okay to victimize the victims. Also, this channel isn't for your entertainment. I legit want assisted termination of life legal for myself and everyone like me. Actually, I've never met anyone like me. I'm pretty unique. I can take more abuse than most people. The first thing that predators do is try to separate you from your friends and family. What's the easiest way to do that? Tell one of the 3 lies. The first lie, oh, he abuses women and children. Yep, that's the first one. That's the worst one, isn't it? You just pretend that you beat on her, or you beat on the kids, or you might molest her, or might molest the kids. See, for all of these things, I gotta listen to people who have families, people who have kids. And you only focus on domestic relationships, that's all you care about. For people like me, there is no help. These places do not help. They will not help. They do not care about men, and neither do you. It's because you're horrible people. Not because I didn't speak out. I haven't just been speaking out this whole time. I was speaking out beforehand too, and that is not stalking. It's called documenting. And I kept people's names safe until I couldn't anymore. Fuck all of you. May you roast in hell.